Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and yesterday was an entire discussion of bench day. All three of my videos in one way or another involved either improving on the bench press, safety on the bench press, and we kind of get brought back to another point because I addressed in my video yesterday regarding some old material from both Scott Herman and Jeff Cavalier about not touching your chest, and they talked about it quite a bit, and they've updated it. Apparently I need to go watch the updated material. People have linked me stuff saying no, those are old videos. They've refined their stance and they're very much in agreement with you now, which does make me happy because I am glad that someone like Jeff Cavalier with a background in sports physiology and sports related physical therapy, it is nice to hear that he has addressed this and updated the information. Because the old information was really bad, and he was talking about stopping short of the chest, but he was demonstrating benching to the upper chest, and he had that as the solution for people who want to bench to the upper chest, was to not touch their chest. Now, that being said, here's the problem we run into. He pointed out, again, as a physical therapist and someone who has hurt himself when much younger with a permanent injury to his shoulder by doing that he has not been able to rehabilitate himself in spite of being an expert at sports rehabilitation. So that should be the first problem a lot of people think of that sinks in there. You have a guy like that who is a good sports physical therapist, and he injured himself many years ago bench pressing in this manner, and still has not been able to rehabilitate his own injury after many, many years. That should be the dead giveaway that this is a problem. Now, he pointed out you don't have to take the bench press out of your routine. It's the way that people perform it. And the thing that he noted is when you bench up high on your chest and you touch the chest, you have internal rotation of your shoulders. And internal rotation of your shoulders tends to put your shoulder joints at a dangerous angle. It puts your shoulder joints at a dangerous angle that leaves them very, very vulnerable to injury. So his solution, if you're going to be up there, was just to not bring the bar all the way down. Problem solved. Well, as most of you know, and I've said before, that's well and good until you accidentally do bring the bar down. Any of you ever failed a rep on a bench press? I mean, the whole idea behind training in that way would suggest that you never, ever, ever, for the entirety of your entire life bench pressing, intend to fail a rep, hit muscle failure, or to miss a lift that you were going to do. That just isn't realistic. It isn't realistic to assume on a big barbell exercise that you use a technique that means you will never accidentally bring the weight lower than you intended with no way to stop it. And now, a lot of people say, well, dips can create the same problem and you can't stop it. Well, you can, because that's why you have things at the bottom. If you go close to hitting failure on a dip, most dipping bars have a place you can put your feet to stop yourself. You can stand up on the spots. Problem solved. You can't accidentally go lower. When you're on a bench press, you will. And people say, well, that's what spotters are for. No, that's stupid. You're going to trust the spotter every single time you bench press for your entire life, and if the spotter makes a mistake or grabs the bar too slow, you're going to get hurt. Potential injury that could require surgery, permanent injury. No, that's stupid. How about we just don't bench to the upper chest? What? How about we bench to the lower chest forever for the rest of our lives? In the manner that guys have bench pressed 500, 600, 700 pounds raw doing over the years, over the decades. Yeah, that's that way of benching. And here's the thing. If we want to eliminate internal rotation of the shoulder, how do we do that? You do it by bringing the bar lower on your chest. It's like a lot of people will talk about, oh no, you need your elbows to be no further out than 45 degrees from your body. You guys watch how I bench. That your elbows shouldn't be any further out than 45 degrees from the body. They shouldn't be flared at the bottom of the lift. Well, here's a question I would ask you. How do you create that position? Because if you try to bench higher up on your chest and tuck your elbows, what happens? Your elbows could end up being 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches beneath the bar. So you actually would just be turning your bench press into a tricep extension. You'd be turning your bench press into a tricep extension at that point. because you would be bringing the bar way up and tucking your elbows way down. Imagine where you guys see me pressing the bar on my chest. Now imagine where my elbows are if I brought the bar way up my chest. My forearms would be almost parallel with the floor instead of upright, wouldn't they? Well, that doesn't work. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to actually work the chest, not turn it into almost exclusively a tricep exercise. The only solution is to bring the barbell further down. The only way you can put your elbows into that position to where they're 45 degrees or closer to your body at the bottom, so that you avoid internal rotation of the shoulders, is to bring the barbell, touch the barbell further down on your chest the way that I'm doing. Further down, below the nipple line. If you try to bring it any higher up, you have to flare the elbows to get the leverages, to keep your forearms under the bar. Now, people will argue, well, there's some EMG studies that show that those guillotine presses where guys do that and they bring the bar way up their chest activate a little more pectoral on the bench press. That's true. They do. It does activate a little more pectoral at the expense of destroying your shoulders. At the expense of destroying your shoulders. And here's the thing. We don't need to rely on any one exercise to say, okay, this exercise has the most activation of a muscle, therefore it's going to stimulate the most growth. That's not true. If you stimulate enough fatigue in a muscle to create, again, enough metabolic fatigue to get those metabolites and create overload and everything else in the muscle, it's going to grow, it's going to get bigger, and it's going to get stronger, even with an exercise that doesn't hit stuff at the ideal angles. And that's what I hated about guys like this Sebastian Sunny guy and Ian McCarthy, when they would start talking about lining your bar path with the fiber angles in a muscle and everything, and they would come up with these oddball, silly fluff exercises, and none of them could still develop the muscles they were talking about. The flaw in that logic is that people assume that if some angle of use on a muscle in an exercise gives 10% more muscle fiber recruitment in a given set, that's going to equal more potential muscle growth. That's not necessarily the case, because if you activate a muscle 10% less with a given exercise, you can probably do 10% more work. What? Yeah, you can do more work. And if you end up just doing more sets, you'll get the same muscle growth. As long as you're moving the muscle through a relatively full range of motion, you are creating enough fatigue, you're going to stimulate maximal muscle growth as long as the workload is sufficient to do so. You don't have to always pick the most effective or the best variation of an exercise to make a muscle grow maximally. You just have to make the muscle work enough. And yes, some variations of a lift will work the muscle a little less than others, but that doesn't mean that you can't stimulate the same amount of muscle growth with it, right? You just have to do a little more work. And the argument might be that some other muscles get some additional work. Yeah, your triceps will get a little more work if you bench press lower on your chest than if you do a guillotine press, but that's okay. Most of us could use more tricep. So what? It's not the end of the world. Your triceps get a little extra stimulation and your chest a little less. You could still build a massive chest doing it. You'll get the bonus of more tricep work. People way overthink these things, and they will use either almost worthless fluff variations of exercises, or in this case, they'll use a variation that has a very, very high risk of injury, an astronomically high risk of injury. In fact, this variation of the bench press has caused the majority of guys you see out there who talk about, I used to bench this amount, I used to be so strong till I damaged my shoulder, till I damaged my rotator cuff. This is how they did it. Doing this stuff is how they did it. That benching high on their chest. There's other factors involved. I mean, obviously things like weak rotator cuffs, not deloading correctly, not training their rear delts. There's a lot of other factors, but that is the biggest factor. That is the number one reason you see guys out there running around talking about how they used to lift, and now you see them and they look like they've never lifted in their life. They're completely out of shape, middle age, never touched a weight. They hurt their shoulders. They hurt it doing silly crap like this. This is what caused it. So the question I would ask you, does it really matter if it gives 5 or 10% better activation of the pectorals? If it does so at the expense of ultra high risk of permanent injury, the number one cause of injury in people who bench press? It's caused thousands and thousands of guys out there to be that. I used to lift. That's what caused it right there. It's not worth it. You can build a massive chest off of a regular closed grip bench press, touching the bar below your nipple. Totally doable. Easy. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.